Hello folks, this is Tom from anti-proton.com and this is a package. You're like, yeah. Thank you, Lab Assistant Neko-chan. That's Neko-chan. He's actually an intern. The other cats are full lab assistants. They have their cat degrees. He does not. He is working on his degree, but don't give him anything about that. Don't say anything about that. You don't want to upset him because he's working very hard on it. So anyway, I got this package in the mail from a friend of mine. And he sent me something I wanted, but he sent me a mystery item along with it. So I was like, yeah, the mystery item is like, okay, right? You didn't send me something really bad, did you? And he's like, no, it's all legit. Because you can ship uranium glassware and stuff like that because it's not very radioactive, so it's perfectly acceptable to ship. But I was like, it's nothing really weird, is it? And he's like, no. So I said, okay, I'm going to use gamma spectroscopy to figure out what's inside of it because that's kind of weird stuff I do. He's like, yeah, it's radioactive, so that's good. All right, so here's the box. Now we're going to cut this open in a minute, but before we cut it open, we're going to figure out what's inside it with gamma spectroscopy. Now, at the time I'm shooting this video right now, I already know what's inside this box. Because I already asked him. But before I asked him, I actually checked and didn't know what it was. So I checked to find out what it was. I knew there was radium-226 in there and all of its daughters, the decayed products, but I didn't know what the other thing was. So I did a little gamma spectroscopy, and here's the gamma spectroscopy part. And at the very end of the video, I will show you what's inside the box and stop beating on it. Okay? So here's the gamma spectroscopy. Alright, so here we go. Let's look at the spectrum. Now I've zoomed in for a minute just to quickly explain how the gamma spectrum is recorded before I go into explaining what it is. There are 1,024 little channels. Each one of these dots represents a single channel. See? When a gamma ray strikes the detector, its energy is measured and it's dropped into one of these channels corresponding to that energy. So for example, right around here is 120 kiloelectron volts. So a gamma ray that shows up at that energy is going to probably get put right about here in this channel. This is channel 64. And as you can see, there were 2,278 counts in that channel. And the actual exact energy is 120.602 kiloelectron volts. So that's how that works. So let me zoom back out again. Here's the full spectrum. That's where we were looking at just a little tiny piece of it right there. And as a result of that, as energies come in, they have a tendency to fill up in particular areas. So for example, there was something right around here at 609 keV. That's this guy right here. The calibration is a little tiny bit off, but that should be 609 keV. And as you can see, something obviously showed up right there. I know exactly what it is. And I've been able to figure out pretty much what all of these are. So let me switch to a image of this. Okay, so looking at the image, you can see just what you saw a moment ago, this nice clean spectrum. This was a 4-hour spectrum. So this is logarithmic view, so 0 to 16 million. Let's go to a linear view. Same spectrum, but a linear view. So now we're 0 all the way up to 8,000 counts. So we're looking at a much narrower amount. Everything is perfectly proportionate. So let's go back and forth. Oops. There's logarithmic, linear, logarithmic. See these 4 guys right here and this 5th one right here? Linear. 4 guys right here, 5th one right here. But the problem with linear spectra is you don't see these little peaks down here. They're kind of hidden because they don't have as much weight in the spectrum because they're so low down here in the count. But if you go back to logarithmic, where everything's jacked up based on its logarithmic value, you can see them better. So let's do a comparison now between the spectrum and the background. So in logarithmic view, this is the spectrum, this is the background. Now you notice this peak right here, which should be right here, drifted because the background spectrum was taken later on at night, and there was a massive thermal flux in my house, 2 or 3 degrees difference change, that threw the whole background spectrum off. So we were forced to basically identify the spectrum without a background spectrum removed, which isn't a big deal because you can look very carefully and see what's in the actual spectrum for the background, and there's not really very much going on, which is good. So let's look at the finished spectrum. Here it is. What do we have? Well, as you can see, I have identified this quite well. So without going into naming every single one of these, I can tell you right off the bat that all of these come from uranium and uranium daughters, the decay products of uranium. Radium 226, lead 214, bismuth, protactinium, not potassium. This is naturally occurring in the environment. That guy right there is naturally occurring in the environment. It may be within the mystery box too, but it doesn't seem too much higher than background. So I'm pretty sure there's not too much potassium inside of the box. This looks pretty close to background too, except for these obvious uranium peaks. So whatever's in that box is based off of uranium. Now, I happen to know that one of the items that's in it is radium, a radium clock, so radium 226. And there's radium 226 right there. But normally this peak is much higher, and the reason it is because of the presence of uranium 235, which occurs at exactly, almost identically the same energy. It's only off by like 1 kiloelectron volt in difference, see? And that usually pushes this up a little. Let me show you what a uranium spectrum looks like. Alright, so looking at uranium, you should immediately notice that the radium peak is much higher than the lead 214 peaks. The reason for this is, of course, as I said before, uranium 235 is pushing this up. You simply can't resolve the difference between radium 226 and uranium 235 with these extremely close energy peaks using a sodium iodide detector like I have. You'd need something like a high purity germanium detector. You'll notice in the original spectrum, which I'll show you in just a moment, this peak is lower, if not equal to these, which suggests the presence of just the radium itself and not the uranium. So this is leading me to suppose that whatever else is inside of the spectrum, it can't be a significant amount of uranium. It's not supposed to be the same thing as radium. It doesn't appear to be anything else. And so my guess is that it's a very, very low activity, refined natural uranium source. So like a piece of uranium metal. There's not really much of anything else to go on, so there's not a lot for me to say beyond that. As you can see, like I said, radium is pretty low against these other guys right here. So that leads me to think what I already said a moment ago. I see a little bit of thorium-234 maybe sticking over here just a little bit, which is something you would find from natural uranium that's been purified but otherwise not chemically affected. DU, depleted uranium, came to mind a few times because of the low uranium 235 occurrence. I'm not sure. I'm going with refined natural uranium. That was the original guess that I made, and that's what I'm going to stick with. Now let's see if I'm right. Well, that was interesting. Natural refined uranium is what I suspected was inside of this thing, as well as the radium-226. Good grief, would that be hard to resolve with a sodium iodide detector, of course. Now, just to let you know, this detector right here, this cesium iodide thallium-doped scintillation detector right here, it's getting about 0.04 microsieverts per hour as a background. The box is only putting off 0.09, so probably can't even see that by now. It'll probably drift out, so maybe you can see it a little bit. 0.8, it's already going down because I moved it away from the box. 7 and so on, it's dropping. So anyway, we're only talking a few microsieverts per hour more inside of the box than outside of the box. So we're not talking about anything terribly troublesome here. So let's see what we get on the Geiger counter. Now, the Geiger counter is getting about 30-40 counts per minute, somewhere in there. Let's see what we get. It's like a little bug crawling across. What's this bug? Go away, bug. What are you crawling in my box for? Where did you come from? Why for art thou, bug? So, my guess is that the bug's inside of the house because it's wintertime outside and it would freeze to death otherwise. Everybody's like, he must be in the northern hemisphere. Yes, I am. Now you check those settings. You check those settings. You make sure that Geiger counter's in good shape. Have you been calibrating the Geiger counters for me? Okay, good. Always got to make sure the cat's doing what he's supposed to do. Being a intern, he's watching it carefully. It's at 110 counts per minute, 112 counts per minute. Would you confirm those settings, Neko-chan, since your face is in the way? Alright. Neko, by the way, is Japanese for cat. Neko. 106. It's going up a little. No, it's going down. So we're not getting much off the box, which is good. This is the, I guess, the hottest side, because you're not allowed to ship boxes that, you know, produce too much radiation. There's actually a limit, and this is under it by far, so that's not a problem. At contact, in its hottest point, which I've already confirmed to be that side, by the way, ahead of time, with a pancake detector nonetheless, which is pretty sensitive for a Geiger counter, we're getting 400 counts per minute, 440, 448, 512, 532, still pretty low. Okay, about 520, 530, somewhere in there. If we move this back about an inch, that disappears to almost nothing. That's why it's not a problem. Alright, so let's cut this guy open and see what's inside of it. For that, we're going to go old school and use an obsidian fragment. Why? Because, as you all well know, I like obsidian fragments. This one's not a very sharp obsidian fragment. Like, it's not cutting very well. Normally they have a good edge on them. This one is more of a grinding kind of edge. Alright, that's cut. And you're never supposed to cut towards you, but I'm doing it anyway. I've removed the labels, obviously. Oh, we're about to find out if he has a giant label in here with his name on it or anything. Alright, Grant. His name is Grant, that's okay. He said I could say his name. It is right here. Alright, here we go. Peanuts! Radioactive peanuts! They're not the peanuts. There's this. A radioactive Radium-226 clock. We're going to open this guy up in just a second and see what's inside. I'm pretty sure that that's where it's coming from. What's the radiation? Yeah, good portion of it. And jammed up over here is the rock. Oh wow! The rock's putting off quite a reading. So the rock was putting off the most. I was wrong. However, that's interesting. I wonder if the position against the gamma spectrum was the reason I didn't get a good read. Very interesting. Let's move this box out of the way, and let's open these guys up out of the plastic and see what we get. Alrighty. At 6,700 plus or minus counts per minute, this little rock right here is really kicking up a storm. Not very much gamma, but plenty of alpha. That's mostly alpha. Put this cardboard in between, it cuts down. So that's the betas you're still seeing going through it. So let's pull this up here a little bit closer to the screen where you can maybe see it. Focus, focus, focus. The lighting's probably a little bright. I mean, probably, it's very bright. Let's cut this lighting off. There. I would have personally chose a slightly different white balance, but the computer is controlling it right this moment. So, definitely a chunk of uranium, gumite or something like that. The yellow on the top might be some kind of uranyl phosphate. It's hard to say for sure. It's definitely uranium. So this is from Grants, New Mexico. Uranium specimen. Nothing wrong with this. Perfectly okay to own. Pretty safe. It's not going to hurt you or anything. Let's see what it gets as a reading here. Alright, on contact, let's see what it gets. 0.4, 0.6 microsieverts per hour, by the way. So 0.6 microsieverts per hour, 0.5, somewhere in there. Let's check the other side out. Pretty similar. So not too much of a dose rate off of this guy, but still pretty nice. Look at that. That's pretty nice. Oops, focus. That's pretty nice. Now let's look and see what's in the package. This was the mystery item. Wow, look at that. A beautiful uranium sample. Thank you, Grant, for sending me something from Grants, which is kind of ironically, oddly, aptly named. Look at that. Beautiful. Alright, the second item turns out to be a radium clock. Look at that. Radium clock. And Grant wanted to know if it would keep its time the whole time it was gone. The answer is no. It's, I believe, a wind-up. See? Wind-up. And unfortunately, sorry Grant, it died at 11:14 on some random day. Okay. It doesn't say. Let's see what the brand name is. Made exclusively for Finney Walker in Germany. I think it says Finney Walker, Germany. Pull on, push off, and it looks like it has an alarm in it, basically. Yeah. So this is like a little travel clock. And let's see what we get. By the way, the gloves are just as a precaution because of the radium. One wants to be careful with radium. Alright, so that's running. 400, 500, 600, it's actually more like 7. 800, 850 really. 9. So it's a German-made travel clock. Most radium clocks are vastly more radioactive than this. Vastly more radioactive. This guy right here is kind of weak on the radioactivity, which is good, by the way, because I don't really want to have something too potent around that clouds with my gamma spectrums. So we're looking at about 1400 counts per minute on the inspector. Very little gamma. So let's see what we get with the Polymaster. Alright. .4, 0.35, 0.4, about 0.4 microsieverts per hour. And from like 2 inches distance, that should drop. 2.3. Pretty soon it's going to drop to like 0.2. Let's go like 4 inches away, see what it gets down to. 0.2. Oh god, it just went down to background. Okay, yeah, so like literally it's pretty, you gotta be pretty close for this to cause an effect. You probably can't see it unless, oops, you counterweight it a little bit so you guys can see the front of it. Unless I cut the light off. Yeah, let me cut the light off so you can see the glow. There we go. In the dark you can really see it. You can really see the glow that it has. It has a nice glow. Look at that. There's the Geiger counter. There's the glow. Beautiful. And that uranium sample doesn't glow, so that yellow that's in the top is probably not uranyl phosphate. But look at that. Thank you, Grant, for sending me a radium compass. Or compass. I'm so used to my radium compass I said that. Thank you, Grant, for sending me a radium travel clock, an alarm clock made in Germany. Also a uranium fragment, too. I will add these to my collection because they are super duper awesome. And by the way, you guys, I hated 2016 as a year. You know I hate it. If any of you follow me, you know I hate 2016. I'm so glad that it is over with. This is my first video of 2017. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe. Click the like button if you liked it. Comments and stuff if you like. I haven't gotten back to a lot of comments recently because I've been working really hard at work and getting a bunch of stuff done. I'm hoping to get a little bit better about getting back into my comments and everything. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Bye.